The US-China trade war began in 2018 under the Trump administration, driven by concerns over China's trade practices. Allegations included intellectual property theft, forced technology transfers, and a significant trade imbalance. The US imposed tariffs on billions of dollars worth of Chinese goods, and China retaliated. This escalation impacted businesses and consumers on both sides of the Pacific. The US aimed to protect American jobs and intellectual property, reduce the trade deficit, and force changes in China's policies. However, the tariffs increased costs for US businesses and consumers. The trade war marked a significant shift in the US-China relationship, highlighting their growing economic rivalry. The trade war has had a tangible impact on both the US and Chinese economies, affecting various sectors and industries in profound ways, sending ripples through the global trade system, disrupting established supply chains, and creating uncertainty in markets worldwide. In the US, tariffs resulted in higher costs for manufacturers, who struggled to absorb these expenses. These increased costs were inevitably passed on to consumers, leading to higher prices for everyday goods. Agriculture was particularly hard hit as China sought alternative suppliers, leaving American farmers with surplus produce and declining revenues. The trade war contributed to slower GDP growth and inflationary pressures in both countries, exacerbating economic challenges. While some domestic manufacturing increased, these gains were often offset by negative impacts on other industries, such as retail and services. In China, the trade war led to a slowdown in export growth, especially in industries heavily reliant on the US market for their sales. China responded by boosting domestic consumption, diversifying trading partners, and accelerating technological development to mitigate the impact. The trade war spurred China to focus on achieving technological self-reliance, reducing dependency on foreign technology. This led to increased investment in research and development, fostering innovation and strengthening China's position in the global tech landscape. The US-China trade war has seen periods of both escalation and attempts at de-escalation. In January 2020, the Phase 1 trade deal was signed, with China committing to increase purchases of US goods. However, the deal left many contentious issues unresolved. The COVID-19 pandemic further complicated the trade landscape, disrupting global supply chains. The Biden administration maintained many Trump-era tariffs, arguing they provided leverage in negotiations with China. The return of Donald Trump to the White House in January 2025 has injected new uncertainty into the US-China relationship. Conflicting signals from Trump and Chinese officials have created confusion in global markets. Recent developments suggest that the US-China trade war remains a significant source of global economic uncertainty. The ongoing tensions between these two economic giants have far-reaching implications, affecting not just the two countries involved, but also the global market at large. In April 2025, investor Bill Ackman argued that time favors the US in the trade dispute, suggesting China needs a deal quickly. Ackman's perspective highlights the strategic advantages that the US might hold, but it also underscores the urgency for China to find a resolution. Conflicting statements from US and Chinese officials have added to the uncertainty. These mixed messages have left analysts and businesses alike scrambling to interpret the true state of affairs. Trump's claims of phone calls with Chinese President Xi Jinping and ongoing tariff negotiations have been denied by Beijing. This back and forth has only served to muddy the waters further, making it difficult to gauge the real progress being made. This lack of clarity has made it difficult for businesses to plan for the future, contributing to market volatility. Companies are finding it challenging to make long-term decisions amidst such an unpredictable environment. The IMF and World Bank expressed concern over the trade war's impact on the global economy, calling for a reduction in trade tensions. They have emphasized the need for stable and predictable trade policies to foster global economic growth. Global markets have reacted with a mix of anxiety and cautious optimism, with the US dollar showing signs of recovery. Investors are closely monitoring the situation, hoping for a resolution that will bring stability back to the markets. The US-China trade war is reshaping the global economic order, with profound implications for the future. This conflict has not only affected tariffs and trade policies, but has also led to a re-evaluation of global supply chains and economic dependencies. For the US, the trade war has spurred a push for increased domestic production and diversification of supply chains away from China. American companies are now more focused on sourcing materials and manufacturing products within the country or from other reliable partners. This trend is likely to continue, regardless of who occupies the White House. Both political parties have shown a commitment to reducing economic reliance on China, making this a bipartisan issue. The trade war has also accelerated the push for technological decoupling between the US and China. This decoupling is evident in sectors like semiconductors, artificial intelligence, and telecommunications, where both nations are striving for technological supremacy. The US has restricted Chinese companies' access to sensitive technologies, raising concerns about a tech Cold War. These restrictions are aimed at protecting national security and maintaining a competitive edge in critical technologies. China is likely to continue efforts to reduce reliance on the US market and technology, strengthening trade ties with other countries. Initiatives like the Belt and Road Initiative are part of China's strategy to build new economic partnerships. The future of the US-China trade war remains uncertain, but it has already had a lasting impact on the global economic landscape. Markets around the world have been affected, and businesses are adapting to the new realities of international trade. The world is watching closely to see how this trade war will ultimately be resolved and what the implications will be for globalization and the global economy. The outcome will shape the future of international relations and economic policies for years to come.